Thanksgiving is more than just a holiday. It's a time where we pack our bags, take the long drive to our families' homes to share time, memories, and food around the kitchen table. It's the time of year where we truly gather in one another's homes, decorating and enjoying each other's company. It's a time to feel incredibly grateful for the blessings in life. And the Sharp Mortgage family wishes you and your family the warmest and best Thanksgiving. If they can help you in buying a home this month, please know that you're in the best care with their team. Contact Ashley with the Sharp Mortgage team with an email, ashley@sharploans.com, SHARPE loans.com, ashley@sharploans.com.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our November episode, our real estate podcast with Blake Ginther from the Ginther Group in Winston-Salem. All his information is in the show notes. We've been working with him, podcasting with him. Man, I think it's been over 5 years now. It's been a long time. And it's amazing. We do this once a month, and we always have something new to discuss because there's always new things happening related to real estate. And today is no different. But Blake, we are in the holiday time of year. I don't know if you're like me. I can't get into the Christmas spirit until we get post-Thanksgiving.
I am that way.
Okay. All right. Make Thanksgiving great again. That's the
yes.
That's the platform on which I'm running.
Oh, that's great. That's pretty funny. Some people, we just immediately turned us off now. That's still too soon, Adam. But
yeah.
And I definitely can't. The Christmas tree when I grew up was a Sunday of Thanksgiving thing.
Yep.
We travel every other holiday. So this year it's Thanksgiving, we travel and we're home for Christmas. Next year it'll be home for Thanksgiving, travel for Christmas. So when we don't travel, we get the Christmas tree on the Sunday of Thanksgiving.
When do you get it when you do travel?
The following week, Tuesday,
okay.
Wednesday, following week.
We do the same thing, and we're the opposite this year. I specifically, because of my job, will be traveling Friday, Saturday, Sunday after Thanksgiving, so we won't get our tree on the weekend after Thanksgiving. We will get it the following week, which is actually kind of nice. I mean, there's less time to have it up in your house, less time to decorate it, but man, the sharp decrease in the amount of people that you're dealing with at those Christmas tree farms or lots or wherever you're going to get your trees makes a big difference.
We typically go Tuesdays or Wednesdays because for that reason.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for Thanksgiving. It's one of my favorite holidays. I love the food. We are actually getting some food catered. Not all of it, but some of it, getting it catered this year from a local restaurant. I think we're going to get it from the porch, which we love.
Super smart. I love it.
Yeah. They've got a fantastic Thanksgiving menu. So yeah, we're keeping it local with our Thanksgiving meal because we are hosting this year, which is not something that we typically do.
That's awesome.
So anyway, okay. There's a lot of places where we can begin. I want to start with, before we get into, look, there's a lot to unpack in terms of the economic impact of the election. And we're not here to talk about right versus left, red versus blue, talk about our feelings on what happened. But we know that the market reacted accordingly when you have certainty. The market likes certainty. And the fact that it was a decisive victory in the federal election had a big impact on the market. And I want to talk to you in just a bit about what that did to interest rates and people potentially in their feelings toward buying real estate.
Yep.
But what typically, election or not, what typically happens this time of year when it comes to real estate transactions?
Yeah, well, I mean, the seasonality element of real estate in our area is real. We've been fortunate to have a warmer, really lovely fall. Today's like literally, as we're shooting this, it's like the first cooler, like really cooler day. But we've been pretty fortunate, and normally that would help us out a lot from a real estate perspective in sales. This year with the election and the uncertainty, it really didn't. So I'm kind of crossing the fingers that this global warming will come back, and I'm just kidding. It's but kind of not, because it does help real estate sell. That being said, we're entering the holiday season where some people take their home off the market. As I tell a lot of sellers, if, just full disclosure, a lot of people will do that. So if you are able to, leaving your home on the market will actually start to give you a leg up as people pull their home off the market, because there will be less inventory, and there are always mid-year moves. So that just the expectation of, well, it's almost Thanksgiving, so I might as well take my home off the market. That's not necessarily true in our market. Specifically, I always say the under 400 and over like 700 price point. Over 700 is the mid-year executives that move here, and under 400, there's always buyers, always in our market. It's the 400 to 700 that typically slows down.
So why again do people tend to take their homes off the market this year or this time of year? Just because they got enough on their plate with the holidays right now?
Yeah, they either have a negativity built in around their seasonality and they go, let's just wait until January or February. Or if they're living in it, right, they just want to put up the decorations and not have to deal with people coming in their home. Or they just don't want to physically have to move in the holiday season.
Yeah, typically your home isn't in the best shape in terms of showing it, presentation.
Yeah.
If it's during the holidays.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. And to your point earlier, people can look at that as an opportunity, right? If you're potentially selling.
That's right. There will be less people. We are seeing inventory tick down a little bit just this past week or so. And that, it had been going up and up and up and up and up steadily. Right. When we were doing this in July, we had 500 active houses. Well, now we have 800 active houses. And for a while there, we were I think we did get over 900 active houses in Forsyth County. So we're back into the eights. I would imagine by December, we might tick all the way down into the sevens. Maybe not. We'll see. So yeah, it's an advantage for some sellers and buyers. A lot of buyers, especially investors, typically do buy a lot this time of year as well.
Yeah. And the message to sellers then, because the inventory is higher, the message to sellers is do the updates, right? Do the work.
Still very much. We had an agent miss out on an offer. They went $15,000 over asking, and this is definitely rare now. But they went $15,000 over asking. I think $5,000 or $6,000 due diligence, and on a mid to upper twos house, and didn't get it. So it's still, but it was updated. It was very, very well updated. And so definitely, if you want that hotter market, you got to create it with your hard work.
At Dewey's, we celebrate every day, but no one celebrates the holidays like we do. Right now, it's the season for sweet treats at any of our 3 Triad area locations. In Winston-Salem at Thruway and Renolda Manor, plus one in Greensboro at Friendly Shopping Center. Easy holiday ordering is also available at local.deweys.com. It's also the season for raising sweet dough for your organization. Contact any Dewey store for information on how you can set up your own holiday fundraiser, where 50% of the items sold go immediately back to your organization. Plus, holiday stores will be popping up from mid-November until Christmas Eve. In the Triad and beyond, these special holiday shops will assist in raising money for nonprofits, and the locations can be found by visiting Deweys.com starting in November. So make the holidays special for the ones you love and others with Dewey's Bakery, home of free Cake Square Monday all year round. Dewey's, celebrate every day.
All right, so on to the topic of the market reaction from the election results. We're not going to talk necessarily about stocks and Wall Street and things like that, but related to one of our favorite topics, which is interest rates. What has happened with that, or what will happen with that since the election wrapped up, and from now until maybe the end of the calendar year.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see because for some reason rates started to tick up again in October. Well, the Fed did their lower, right? They lowered it by a half a point, which most people weren't sure if they were going to do a quarter or a half. They ended up doing a half. And so, but again, mortgage banking institutions had already baked in that reduction. So some institutions thought it might even be more than that, which I'm not sure why. And that's why we saw rates for a second there get into the upper fives. But that half a point really should have and did equate for about a month in like low to mid sixes. Well, for some reason, the lending institutions started, again, separate from the Fed, they just started raising rates. And for a while there, they got up into the upper sixes and, and some in the low sevens. And it doesn't really make sense because the Fed hasn't changed and nobody thinks the Fed is going to raise the rates and they're on their next with their next move. I think now politically, this is where I struggle because this, I've said this on this podcast, I'm pretty apolitical and I really don't believe that specifically presidents do much to change the cost of my eggs or the Fed, right? And they're really legally not supposed to. Now, we hear people say this all the time, legality and our soon-to-be president maybe don't go hand in hand. And so people believe, and in a positive way, people who voted for him believe he will put pressure on the Fed to lower the rate. I don't necessarily believe that. I don't. I don't think that his run as on The Apprentice is going to make the Fed. I'm just kidding. But the reality is, I don't see why the Fed is going to feel pressure to kowtow to him in any capacity. They're going to do what they think is best economically for our country. What I want to go on this, though, is to say people need to be careful what they wish for because realtors want interest rates to go down. I will do better. Like realtors and real estate in general certainly will do better if interest rates come down. Now, conversely,
because and I know this obvious answer, but just because
buying power will go up.
Right.
People, if your interest rate is 6 instead of 7, you can afford more.
Right.
Your payments go down and you can afford more and there will be more buyers and it will be easier for first-time buyers and so there's a lot of positive from that perspective. Now, conversely, what I want people to know is that if interest rates come down, that means that there's a risk of inflation going up, right? And for people who wonder why we haven't dropped the rates already, it's because spending is still really high, right? And so people complain about the cost of eggs and their grocery bills, and yet interest rates, if they go down, the cost of eggs will go up, most likely. And so you got to be careful. It's a fine balancing act, which is why I don't believe that any president, regardless of who we voted for, will impact the Fed. And I will give the Fed some credit. They've done a pretty good dance because the real estate market has been super slow to do much of any movement, good or bad, which is actually a good thing considering how crazy it got there for a while. And inflation in general, although we all want to whine about the cost of our groceries, and they are high, it could be worse. It really, really, truly could be worse. And so, Adam, that's where selfishly, I want interest rates to come down. I don't think the vast majority of humans should wish for that.
You mentioned that to me before we started recording, and you got my attention with that statement of real estate. People in real estate want interest rates to come down, but consumers should not. And I was curious to hear the answer, but it makes sense because, correct me if I'm wrong, rising interest rates was a way to curb inflation.
1,000%. That's the only lever the government really has, right? That's really it. When everybody's spending money, all they can do is make it a little bit harder for you to spend money, for companies to go big, and for, so, and when real estate was going insane, which is really why I give Fed credit now. The Fed blew it back, and it's easy to say that now, but they blew it back in 2021 when it was clear that our government, that we were doing great economically, right? When COVID was settling and the vaccines were coming out and consumer confidence was high. We had record expenditures, and real estate went bananas in 2021. Well, I mean, that's because interest rates were in the twos, right? They were way too low for way too long. So, and when people know that and people say that, but then they struggle with, well, let's get back there. And that's the other thing I want to say. I don't think consumers want to see anything below a mid to upper fives for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. So to bring it back to real estate, is it fair to say that if interest rates go lower, it helps people working in real estate because it increases the buying power of people, because the lower the interest rate, the lower your payment's going to be? But on the flip side, if interest rates come down, inflation might increase, and it decreases their buying power because they're spending more on other things.
That's right. That's right. And
that sounds like a real catch-22 there.
It is. And that's what I mean by the balancing act that the Fed has done with slow decrease, with the slow increases and now slow decreases. And I just don't see that changing much. And the interest rates being in the upper sixes and low sevens is not the Fed's fault. That is corporate, in my opinion. It's a bit corporate greed. It's a bit of lenders, not lending institutions, having less loans. So them going, well, I got to make money. But I just want to say, I've learned a lot about the lending institutions. There's a lot of lending institutions writing $25,000, $35,000, $50,000 checks to mortgage loan officers to recruit them or to keep them, and they're doing that preemptively, thinking that, well, the market will pick back up, but the consumers are paying for that because interest rates are going up, and the higher the rates, the more typically, the more commission a loan officer can make.
If you, Blake Ginther, had full control over that lever that could set interest rates and affect what the Fed might do in terms of how people spend their money, what lever would you pull? That is the best case. And I'm asking you to put on your realtor hat, but also put on your consumer hat. And I'm asking you to consider a lot of different perspectives here. And like you said, it's a balancing act. What do you think is the best case scenario?
And the hardest part is I only can speak to our market, right? And the thing the Fed has to take in consideration, which is so crazy, right, is the bajillions of different markets. And not just real estate, but consumer spending in general, right? And so, and North Carolina is just one little, and the triad of North Carolina is just one little snippet. I would say that if I'm the Fed, which I think they're going to do, right? I think they're going to do another quarter drop. And I don't see them doing that. Half point drop is probably the biggest drop they're going to do. Increase or decrease, by the way, for a while. Unless something happens and people start going crazy again with spending, and then they go, crap, we got to go up a half a point, which I just don't see happening. So I think that a quarter drop makes sense. Every profession, and this is a side note, sorry, Adam, I'm going to take us down a tangent. Every profession gets crushed by attorneys at some point. My profession got crushed by attorneys this year. And only from a logistics paperwork perspective, and the high people that own these companies had to write big checks, right? They settled and they wrote big checks. And frankly, candidly, very little changed, as is often the case. These attorneys that won this class action lawsuit got yachts, big, beautiful yachts.
Billable hours are always undefeated.
They're undefeated. And I've heard my father talk about the medical industry and how easy it is in our country to sue. And every time a medical industry, a doctor wins a lawsuit, they lose. They lose. Their E&O goes up, and it costs money to defend themselves. And by the way, the consumer then pays, right? There's a reason why insurance is what it is. There's a reason. So, the one crazy thing, and if you're an attorney out there listening to this, sorry, but the attorneys and follow me because I promise I have a point through this. Attorneys are the problem, and I think they're the number one hated profession on every poll every year for like ever, but nobody ever polices them. Who polices attorneys? And if we say politicians, we all will die laughing. But who polices attorneys? At the moment, it's maybe politicians who oftentimes are attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
And where I'm going with this is the whole lawsuit in my industry was transparency. And where I'm finally getting to my point now, because you're going, what in the heck is he talking about, is the lending institution is not transparent. It's not transparent. And that's what they came after my industry, was for transparency. Well, my industry, especially in the state of North Carolina, we've been transparent. Like, exactly what, as a consumer, it's been written out. If you didn't know.
Yeah, to clarify, it was about commissions that went to buyer's agents and
Correct.
How it was being divvied out when you paid that 6% commission, right? It was that's transparency.
Right. That's right. That negotiable amount was always in writing. X to your listing agent and X to the co-op agent, always. And I mean, for not always, but for like 15 plus years. So maybe longer than that. So in North Carolina, now, not every state, but in North Carolina. Now, ask the average consumer, how does a lender make their money? They don't know.
I don't know.
And it is never really gone over, right? The lenders go over what your cost will be from a total fees and but they don't go over their commission and what they charge interest rate wise. And they're almost all selling their loan, by the way, to another entity, but that entity pays them more per the interest rate. So, and because you said long-windedly, coming back to your question, you said if I had my lever, well, the lever I would want to pull right now is I would want lenders to stop getting checks to stay at work, right? And therefore that would not be passed on to the consumer in artificially high interest rates right now. Because that's what's happening. The industry, lenders are doing loans in the upper 6s and low 7s. When the Fed dropped their half a point rate, they should be in the low 6s.
It's time to get serious about your financial future. It's never too early, but it could be too late to get started. And that's oftentimes the hardest part, getting started. How much do I save? Where do I invest? Do I save for college or retirement? How much for each? And who do I talk to about it all? Okay, we'll keep things simple for now and help you answer the last one. We recommend you begin with a local financial advisor, and that's Jennifer Johnson of 3 Magnolias Financial Advisors. She'll sit down with you for a complimentary introductory consultation and go over all of your questions. Get started on the path to achieving your financial goals. Visit 3magnoliasfinancialadvisors.com or call 336-701-1600. Get comfortable with your financial future. 3 Magnolias Financial Advisors, retirement, financial planning, and investments. Securities offered through Private Client Services, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through 3 Magnolias Financial Advisors. 3 Magnolias Financial Advisors and Private Client Services are not affiliated. Private Client Services is under separate ownership from any other named entity.
Gotcha. And to your point, there's no transparency in what people are signing in terms of how that is affecting what people are taking home from that.
That's right. And full disclosure, like I have to, every deal we do, I have to sign that I started a mortgage brokerage within my company this year that allows some of the people that I've always used, like Ashley Mackenzie Sharp, who's not one of your one of the Triad Podcast Network's sponsors, right?
Mm-hmm.
She does play in it. she's able to do write loans in it. The whole point of it was for them to get 3 quotes. One of them might be from Ashley. One of them might be from a brokerage. One of them might be from another corresponding lender. And in one soft pull, they get 3 quotes. That's a big part of it. And I didn't start this tangent with that plug. But even then, does my institution clearly say what the loan officer is going to make? I don't think so. And I would like for them to. I would like for the industry to change.
Yeah. But is it going to take what the real estate industry went through this year? Is it going to take a class action lawsuit?
Probably
for that to happen.
It usually does. I just wait. When are the attorneys going to get sued?
Wow. Now we're getting into some Inception conversation here.
Right. When an attorney takes a class action lawsuit that is super frivolous and goes nowhere, but gets to courts and people have to pay a lot of money to protect themselves.
And people have to pay money. Yeah.
What happens to that attorney? Anyways, this is not at all real estate related, but that is an interesting.
It ties back a little bit. All right. So let's leave it with this question here. A quick word of advice for people locally, because we've talked a lot of national, but I think you've been able to bring it back here to a local angle as well. People locally, referencing a little bit back to the seasonality conversation we had at the beginning.
Yeah.
Buyer, seller, locally. What's your advice for people here in mid-November?
Buyers should 100% pull the trigger. If I'm a buyer and I am an 8 or higher out of 10 on wanting to buy a property, they should be buying now. For sure in the next 60 days.
Because the inventory is high enough.
Inventory is good enough and the buyer pool is low still, right? It's getting a little better post-election with some clarity and yada, yada, but it's still slow. So by mid-January on, I believe that there will be a fair amount more buyers. And I believe that, yes, there'll be more inventory, specifically Valentine's Day on, but there will be a lot more competition.
Okay. Good advice. One more thing to plug, because people are listening to this hopefully a few days before it happens, but you guys have one of your favorite holiday themed events coming up. It's pre-Thanksgiving, but it's still I think it's still applicable for people this time of year. But what do you guys have going on the 23rd of November?
Yeah, man. Well, it's funny because we both said we don't really start thinking about the holiday spirit until, but those that are in charge of getting family photos do. So we have our photos with not just with Santa, by the way. We actually have it set up this year where those that don't want Santa can still get professional photos, holiday photos, if you will. On November 23rd, if you are a client or would like to be a client, please reach out to us at 336-283-8689, 283-8689, or theginthergroup.com and ask about photos with Santa, and we'll make sure we get you in.
Yep. And their information on that event specifically, and a lot of their information on things they have going on, is available on their Facebook page. They're on Instagram as well. Theginthergroup.com, theginthergroup.com. Get your holiday cards all taken care of.
I mean,
phenomenal.
We moved it up this year so that everybody could get it in time.
Yep. All right, Blake, enjoyed it, man. That was good. We went in a lot of different directions there, but I think we brought it back. I think we brought it back into the station. Okay.
I apologize for some long-winded tangents.
All right, man. Be good.
You too.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode on the Triad Podcast Network. Our mission is simple: provide information, advice, and stories about the people and places that make the North Carolina Triad such a great place to be. You can find us by searching Triad Podcast Network on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much wherever you like to listen. If you like what you heard and want to support the show and those that contribute, we would truly appreciate a rating and review on your favorite podcast app. It helps spread the word along, as do your shares on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Triad Podcast. To get in touch with us, simply email info@triadpodcast.com. Thanks for listening.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.